thanks so much for having us here. For us, it's very exciting to see the track that I think design is getting within the open source world. As long-time open source enthusiasts, we love that the developers not the only talk we have around the town. We have more people that want to find a way to combine both worlds into the into whatever this is. We are here as we're here as Blender, but we are also here as, again, people that love design, love the craft. We're going to share a bit of our pain points to actually try to instill a design culture in Blender, and a bit of the tooling. And Pablo, why don't you speak a bit about what brings us here and yourself?
Well, like you said, design usually, or open source, back in the days, like a few decades ago, it was like it's like almost a synonym of like the UI might be, or you have this open source software that's used all over the place, and then UI, especially Blender, gotta say, was not the prettiest thing, and the UX was also one of the pain points, and we are working on that, and all of that is thanks to open source being more used for design, from Penpot tools to even making our own. So we're going to talk about that a bit today.
And just before we get to explain what is Blender, in case some people might not know, we have a video about that. Just as I said, Blender has been through different big design, I would say, big number bumps throughout its history. And you've been around for both of them, right? Or even before the 2.4 and 2.8. And it's funny, I always find a bit cringy when the AI bros say, hey, only going to get better. But it's a mantra we also have, because a lot of the changes we do is incremental. And if you look back to a Blender, we do it like 1 year back, 2 years back to see a bug report, and like, oh, wow, so many things got so much better. And I think we want to see that trend moving forward. So to get started, who here knows what Blender is and what Blender is about? All right, in case someone does not?
Yeah, there's.
Okay, good, because we have a video just for you. So this is a bit of a teaser, a reel of a recent Blender release. We have audio, maybe production. But it's a collection of work from different artists.
Sideshow and Janus. Thank you to Blender. Thank you to my mom and dad. Thank you to my cats and dogs. I'm really moved by the warm reception our film has had, and I hope that it will open doors to independent animation filmmakers around the world.
Okay. Show off much? So that was not our work, but of all the community. One of the highlights was Flow, that won the Oscars last year. But all of this it's made with Blender over the years, right? Like today we're talking about, actually yesterday, a new version of Blender came out, 5.1. So that was fun to work on the train, and you can already have a look at what's there. Like some of the features that were added there. In this case, it was more of like a quality of life, like trying to get feedback from the users. Something we are trying to apply more and more and more on the day-to-day. Blender is a Swiss Army knife, right? You can do from video editing to 3D modeling to like sculpting to like you name it. And things that we don't even know how people manage to do it with Blender. So in that, having that language of multiple things that you can do in one system is one of the biggest challenges. So with 5.1, we actually tried to tackle some of those changes. And this version of Blender is made by the community, but also a team of people.
Yeah, although Blender is an open source project, we do, over the years, have a more fixed, basically a staff, as we call it. A few of them based in Amsterdam, some people remote. Jacques, Luke is here, is one of the developers from Berlin, so he was volunteered to join the conference as well. And it's a mix of people working only for the animation studio, which we have within the same office, people doing management and overhead, so basically make sure we can run everything smoothly, and developers and designers. But from all those people, basically we have 32 developers and only 2 designers, and even doing, that's me, like Pablo full-time, but also doing communication and web, and me doing product and design and things which are just meetings which have nothing to do with design itself. So we are vastly outnumbered. And besides this, we also have the community contributing every release. If sometimes it's just a bug fix, things that don't require a design expertise. Sometimes as we say, a feature request disguised as a PR, as a pull request. Or, hey, I want to improve Blender because I have a lot of opinions about that. So how do we make sure we can leverage the tools we can have, especially open source tools, to make sure that everyone can have a voice? There's a famous say that Ton, the founder, once was saying that if you cannot draw it, don't code it. Which basically means if you really cannot if you cannot communicate what you want to create, don't start by typing code. Start by having a conversation about it, drafting your ideas, try to solve some of the problems before you even compile your first line of code. Which is a mantra which, for a lot of developers, that doesn't come as natural. They feel more comfortable prototyping already in the code, and all the UI in Blender, we don't even need to compile. It's Python, so we can quickly play with the UI. But I also believe that using the right tool for the right job allows you to be in that space, in the creative space, less constrained about the code, and have more fruitful conversations. So what we try to do is to have different design strategies depending on the problem. We still use pencil and paper. This is the first draft of the spreadsheet editor in Blender, one thing we created for the geometry nodes. We also do fully polished concept videos. We're going to go over this a little bit more in details later today. And wireframes, more traditional black and white mockups, or one-to-one high fidelity UI representations. So it really depends on what you want to do at the time. And although this talk is going to be mostly focused on the design system and Penpot, we actually have been using more and more ScaliDraw, so a bit of shout out to them. It's also open source project. And it's so good for this first stage where you just care about big blocking. You don't want to you have only 3 font sizes and a handful of colors. Highly recommend not to get too much into, I'm using components, I have to do everything perfectly. So try to even not fall in love too much with the crafting, and remember design is a bit beyond, bigger than all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, big shout out. I only discovered this recently, actually, this ScaliDraw. It's amazing. If you haven't tried it, try it because it feels so intuitive. So shout out to whoever's making it.
The usability.
It's like, oh, I wonder if they will do this. Yes, it does. And it's just like, amazing. Inkscape works like that. I also shout out to them. Anyway, but before all this, when we were trying to come up with a way to have a design system, before Penpot existed, before this existed, or at least I found out about it, was I tried to make my own thing with whatever I knew, which was HTML and CSS. It was like, okay, websites, right? They are a thing. CSS, you can have themes, you can have your own components, you can reuse them, you can add JavaScript. So at some point I started to go into this direction, which is to try to design the Blender's UI using HTML. That worked great at the beginning. I thought it was a fun way to get started, and to me was way faster than doing it in GIMP. I was using GIMP back then to make UIs. or I was using Blender to use UIs. So at some point, it's like, okay, maybe there is a better way of that. And Penpot came from the heavens, from Spain, actually, and saved us all. So we started making this in with the early Penpot, like before variants, before all the fun stuff we have nowadays, before design tokens, before everything. So we actually tried. We tried to port the previous HTML into Penpot. We made 2 themes. We, as a proof of concept, was working actually pretty well. But it has it was missing some of the features that now you take for granted, variants or more advanced components that.
Yeah. And for us, this whole idea of design system, which I hope Andy is going to cover later today. I think we talked briefly in a sec, but was also foreign to us. So Pablo created his own UI library for Blender. And then I wanted something more low fidelity, more mockup look like. So I created my own as well. Tried to match the name. At some point we said, this week is for us to work on the design system. So try to fill the gaps between both systems. It wasn't great, but was already being very useful after we put the effort into moving something to digital. Because we still found at that point, you'd start doing things by drawing, and that's be faster. But then the moment you go digital, you have to iterate many times. Then it saves a lot of time to do so in a digital system. And
for the low fidelity, though, the inspiration was mainly like we wanted to have on paper. We want to print it. And of course, you don't want to print a dark theme. So that was like the main driver, was to be able to print this. And then...
And we have been using it, even though it wasn't perfect. We're already using what we had. We keep redoing the post-it component so many times. I think it's about time we created one in our design library, which we haven't yet. But we're using what we have, also always mixing Blender screenshots with some make-do components for this project, and try to, after the fact, copy from this to the future project, try to move some of those things to a library, try to make sure the design tooling wasn't getting in the way, and try to find this balance between leveraging them. It's super hard to not try to make things good while you're trying to create at the same time. It's still something you need to get better at.
That's why Excalidraw is a great, because it forces you to have crappy, or quick designs, not crappy at all, until
finally we had the opportunity to actually work in the first 1.0 design system. For us internally is a V3, but it's the first one that we are proud of releasing publicly. We already sent a PR for Penpot. It was already incorporated. I don't know how long does it take to roll out the templates. Maybe Ariel knows. But basically, it's a design system that only comprehends a few set of components, right? You have to decide to scope it. So we did for the main ones we use. We also combined the icon library we had with the design system. So it's a single file with all of it. Turned out to work well. And if you really want to know about design system, I hope Andy covers that. I was even hoping he would be before us. But because we have to be the first one to do so, a design system basically is a set of building blocks we can use to create your UI. So how many people here have never heard of design systems before? Oh, OK. OK, so it can be very brief. By the time, so 6 months ago, we had someone coming over to work at Blender as part of his master thesis about leveraging design expertise in open source. You can download his thesis here. It's going to be recorded, get a QR later. And the main outcome of his thesis, besides the whole analysis of open source, about how we can better improve the process, was actually having a design system as a main deliverable. So as you know, design system is this building block. You can have this component to build complexity on top of each other. And we got to a point where we have a one-to-one, almost indistinguishable variant of the Blender screenshot with what you can do with the design system. And basically, we have all the icons we have to date. That's a bit of a pain point at the moment to update the icons, because we got this to work in an early version of Penpot, and to update, I need to go back to that same old version of Penpot, which is OK. It's open source. We can do it. And just for anyone else doing design systems with icons, the main pain point problem we had is that the SVG files they lose all their naming in the latest Penpot, which I already reported. So basically what we do when I have to update the icons, I just go one by one, and then it's usually is a couple of each release. But if I need to do like 20, 30, I spin an old Docker image for Penpot. I run a script from within Blender that creates a big copy in the clip buffer, and I have a plugin on Penpot that pastes this and process it. A lot of tech you can find all in our open repositories. Anyhow, in the past we saw that we have the two themes, two design systems competing for attention and for time. And we thought, what if we could have only a single system that comprehends both of them, and that we could still leverage what for us worked so great from GIMP, or even when we use Penpot, with this mix of a screenshot and basically our custom components. Do you want to?
So this you already seen. What's great about it is that we can combine, because one of them is a theme in Blender, and the other one is something that is made in Penpot. You can actually tell the difference, which is great, because it allows us to mix these two, this system of having part of it, like maybe the more complex part, like the actual 3D, because Penpot doesn't do 3D yet. Lame. No, but you can just take a screenshot of Blender and then put on top some combination of what you have in Penpot and in the theme.
Does it play? Yeah, it does.
So this is what you can describe.
This is basically an example. If you're changing something in the menu, you pick your icon, you change the order of the items, and then you can just change the theme, and it's going to work. And I use that specifically for the early conversation with the developers. I want to show something that doesn't scream, hey, this is ready. Your opinion don't matter much. It's more like, hey, this is early on. We can change anything. But also, I don't want to do any extra work if I decided that's now time to publish and communicate at large. And that works for any of the components we built. That's building heavily on the themes and the design tokens in Penpot. There's some rough edges, especially when it comes to where we are in terms of design tokens in Penpot. But we see this is only getting better over time. And the other thing is about screenshots. So what you see here is a screenshot of Blender as it is. And oftentimes, we want to show the proposal in context. That's when it really makes sense, the change we're doing, and it's not this myopic view of a solution. And for that, we also could use Penpot to design everything. We don't want to. We shouldn't spend that much time on it, as much as fun it is. So we are doing a mix of have a screenshot as a base, and then you can add your custom elements on top of it. And you have a bit of a best of both worlds. However, so we're talking about the multiple themes, right? We call the dark theme and the mockup theme. And we even, actually, let's hold that thought for a second. So when it comes to screenshot, we actually wanted to double down on that and not only be able to do this composition, but also to be able to have a menu, pop-over element that can only take an image. So here, literally, we have a panel that is only supposed to have an image, and then you can still combine with some custom elements on top. I think this is what yeah. And it works great to have this. It's a very fast way to get some very high fidelity element. But then what happens if you now switch to the different theme? If you go back to the mockup theme, now it kind of broke. The whole idea, the whole promise of this fantastic new system doesn't pan out. But as you can imagine, we wouldn't be here if this was the end of the talk. So as Pablo said, we did create a whole theme in Blender to actually have the same, we call low fidelity, but it's more like high contrast, print-friendly theme that anyone can download and use at Blender. So even for regular meetings, sometimes you get to print it and have it for design review on top of a physical paper. But then you also made a tool to support screenshotting in Blender in a way that fits our dual theme system and Penpot. So better shown than said. So here we are at Blender, at Penpot. You know, that's kind of your proposal for UI. This is going to take a screenshot because I want that little panel to be integrated into Penpot. Something happened, you don't know what it is, but happened automatically, and you can paste it. So far, so good. But then the moment you switch themes, you also get this result you wanted. And the way you do it, so basically we hijack the clip. So basically if you copy and paste something from Penpot to Penpot, it's basically a JSON file. So, and what we do is we take the JSON as the skeleton and we replace the image payload. And we have basically 2 images scaled down because we do use retina display for most of the team. And we then scale down by 2. It works better overall in the screens. We also put it in a group, and the topmost element has a opacity driven by a design token. So basically, you see that element or not, depending on which theme you have, and it works super, super, super well. So it's a bit of a hack. It's probably going to break every other Penpot version. But it's also very easy to patch it up and fix it again. Again, you can find those, the tooling in our website. And something we wanted to mention is that we mentioned some of the rough patches that comes to adopting, being early adopters. I think probably all of us fit within that bill. But we are trying to steer Penpot a little bit in our direction. So we've been reporting bugs for sure, but also contributing things which are maybe not so important for the people doing web. We're not doing web with Penpot. And we actually got the point, the mark of, we have 10 real patches already incorporated into Penpot. Some of the things are very straightforward, like a WebP image downloading, but some of them are really for our own workflow, like for instance, the copy image as clipboard. So at first, we already were using WebP for everything we were doing it, and it was annoying to convert manually. And I realized I don't even want to do WebP. I just want to copy from Penpot and paste already on our platforms. So just that's basically us being lazy. We also have been trying to improve the workflow for tokens as well. You know, Penpot has in their roadmap the idea of being able to have linked tokens from a library file to your working file. But for us, effectively, until we have it, it means that we have to keep re-exporting the tokens every time we update anything in the main file. And while we wanted to publish these for the community, the amount of instructions which were required for you to start using a design system were a bit too much. So we also implemented a way for, after you import the library, there's a new button there. It's going to be in the 2.15 Penpot, I believe. A new button there that just also allows you to import the tokens. The custom font is a funny one, because Blender doesn't really have a font which was directly compatible with Penpot, so I had to convert it. I had no idea who had converted and uploaded to our system. I think it was you or Sam. And I didn't have the font with my computer. I wanted to upload it to having the documentation for the design system. So we added an option on Penpot to be able to download the fonts which were uploaded. So it's just those little quality of life, which for us, it means a lot that Penpot team is very receptive to them. To be fair, half of those I consider more feature requests than PR. So their team really took it and rewrote a lot of it. But I'm very happy they get to hear us a little bit. We're very happy about it. So the design system itself can be found online, but if you want to get involved, you can join us. You want to talk, can join us in our own communication channels. And I think we still have 10 more minutes, if I'm right. Because we have some bonus slides, which I think you would like to watch. Do you want to cover the beginning? I take over.
All right. So beyond the design system, what can you do to present your idea more or to sell your idea, right? It's open source. You're not selling anything, but you need to sell it to the users, but also to the developers who are going to work on it. So actually, what you see here, this is what you made. You made this one. Yeah. This looks so legit, right? Like, oh, Blender and iPad, finally, right? Who made that? Well, if you actually know Blender, you know that this is not possible in many ways. There is new controls there. So actually, this gentleman here made up this picture.
Yeah, it's what I mentioned, that at some point, the design system is perfect to use the UI toolkit you have, but every now and then you want to push beyond what's possible at the moment. So basically, being Blender users ourselves, we said, how can we better sell this idea? So we have here as a the first image plate. And then on top of that, we did a capture of a Blender customized to look very different than the default Blender. And it's a nice demo file as well from an artist in the studio. So try to get these elements together. We do a lot of masks because we want to do some things which are some tricky. Using Penpot for the interactive prototyping. We actually used that to actually test and validate some of the design ideas with real people in the office, especially seeing how does it feel to have this going this way or the other way. It's so powerful to have it. We have then a little recording of us using the Penpot interactively as we wanted. It's not much. I mean, it's basically what people do all the time. So, but just allowing ourselves to go beyond these little constraints of the design system, and then using Blender for just video editing, as one does. And then you have the final piece. So the first half of the video is basically Penpot with screenshot of Blender I think it was mostly screenshots we combined, and the second part is Blender, but then you can tell.
You can tell it's also in this halfway, it's like, okay, super advanced, but also using the mockup thing. So you didn't want to go full in. You're like, okay.
As I said, I still want to show more the promise than a final proposal.
Not too good, otherwise, yeah.
And this project is on hold at the moment. We are trying to make something flashy to try to get some funding, which we didn't manage to at the time. But
if you use the full theme, maybe.
Next time. Anyways, this is what we had to share. So thanks so much. I'm expecting someone to come from the stage and...
More questions? Or?
I don't know if you do questions here or if you do in a break. How does it work?
You've got time for questions, yeah.
We have time for questions.
I'll grab this mic over here. Maybe someone has.
I see the first one there.
Yes. Who was the first one? Yeah.
So you mentioned that you just recently started to establish a design system with Penpot. How did you manage in the past to make this big change to 2.8 from the previous version to 2.6? It was like a massive overhaul and improved the user experience significantly.
Yes. That was William. The answer is Keynote.
From 2.7 to 2.8, I thought you meant... no, I think it was just, whatever you had at the time. I also worked on the theme for 2.8 before all of I was just making it in Blender, basically. Just change Blender's code to make it look close to what you would want, or just GIMP also. Take a screenshot, change it, and then, okay, I want this. And then trial and error.
Yeah,
so,
I think William was doing a lot of mocking up on Keynote.
Yeah, we would use Keynote too.
So William was the lead design at the 2.8 project.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
Whatever works.
That's usually that's the answer, and I always keep that on check. Like, are we spending too much time fixing the design system instead of using it? It would be faster to just take a screenshot and then drawing something.
2.8 took 2 years, so I think it's not going to take longer for next time. But yeah.
Thanks. I really love your hack to have both the lo-fi and hi-fi in the same environment and just changing this theme. I'm wondering, when I work in low fidelity mockups, though, I kind of don't want the design system to be in the way, right? Like lo-fi to me is not just a way to communicate to other stakeholders what I want to do. It's also a really intuitive way to design. And then I wonder, I guess my question is, has it changed your process at all now that you have both systems and I guess both themes in the same system, in one system only?
Now that's really a choice more than anything else. Now that's really up to you to decide. We are still, on my experience, we're still playing with what is the measure to that. Honestly, some of the proposals, like the media being recently one, We even like, let's start with the, even a low fidelity mockup, let's start with these and then we describe what is the task. And the first feedback was like, oh, I don't see the problem definition. I don't see the use cases listed. I don't see the data flow. So I think it depends a lot on the audience. Learning first, that's been my experience. If I'm showing something to Pablo, I try to show, still as a lo-fi mockup. I still don't know when is a moment for the high fidelity.
It's easier to say that it screams it's a mockup, whereas the other one, it looks so close. It looks so close to Blender that like people would think it's a real thing. And if there are items missing in the UI, then they will wonder, it's like, hey, but you didn't add this button. It's like, yeah, I didn't. It's a mockup. I think that's the gap that I personally like to use the dark theme. The dark theme for Penpot, like the full-on thing. But before that, I'm now using Scalidraw more because it's just you just want some bubbles, right? Like a bubble diagram. Okay, this is where things go. So,
yeah, so you go from the bubble to the high fidelity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to show it to developers and the community, I use the mockup. Just I don't know. It's a mix. Now we're still learning.
When I'm doing variations of the same idea, I use I think the lo-fi mostly. Yeah. Just I don't know. For me, it's there's a I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I have an answer. Sorry.
Alrighty.
Oh, I think we're gonna.
Sorry, later. So thank you. This is half of a comment. The first half of this comment is more of a compliment. So like a few months ago, I went to a place back home and there was this guy who had a Steam Deck and he was on a Wacom tablet and he was sculpting in Blender. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I didn't know that this was possible. And he was moving things around very nicely. So I was not aware that Blender was so powerful and like this dude was full open source with Steam Deck and everything, you know. And this is a question now, like how much are you involved with the user experience of a drawing tablet? Because it's so different, right? Clicking and proximity sensors and whatsoever. Do you work on that a lot?
Maybe I can answer this in the context of what you're talking here in particular. Thanks for your compliments. So, I hope the team feels heard on that. So basically, even when we started to mock up what was the iPad project at the time, at some point I decided to do some mockups already using, I think, Swift, the native iOS language, because for some of the usability, the interaction, you want to see how it feels. And at that point, just having the images only goes so far. That's just in the context of a design system and whatnot. What we have in Blender, we have a module dedicated to sculpting that's working, improving the usability for basically pen-based workflows. And this year, we're working an Android port that's going to present a whole new challenge of how do you work with Blender without a keyboard. And this, again, this is where mocking up can help. But this is probably where prototyping might be even more effective because you have to feel it. You cannot just pretend you know that is better.
Yeah, this is a particularly challenging project because, as you said, iPad has its own gestures, Android has its own gestures. We want people using on their Wacoms also, but then Wacom also has its overlay of the radial menus. So, and then there is the other tablets. So it's like, how do you build Blender own thing, or you rely on the operating system? So.
And the one thing that was fun to share for the design audience that we are debating whether we would make a Blender for new users. That there's a whole generation of people that don't have a computer, they only have a tablet. So there's millions of them. Well, we decided in the end to try to make Blender for Blender users that want to have the Blender on the go, which is a different design paradigm. So we still, if you have a keyboard, you have the full-fledged Blender experience with shortcuts. But even if you're in a desktop with one of those drawing tablets, you can still use the same UI paradigm. You can change. It's not possible at the moment, but you're able to change the Blender skinning to a keyboard-less experience and still use the touch as if you were on the go with a tablet. So,
Okay, last question. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's funny because we are in a straight comment line here. So yeah, big props to you. I mean, like designing an interface in another interface is like just wicked. Like, and same goes to the other designers. I was just wondering, like, do you have a dedicated design system team where you discuss some things like naming? You know, we all know naming is hard, and or you get together where you think about like how propose new components and stuff, like a cross-functional team or something, or you're just like two dudes talking to a bunch of big crowd of developers. Like, how do you organize yourself? That's what I'm really interested in.
Maybe I will start by saying that the goal of the design system is to be used by the design team first. This is already a victory. So if you can already respond to have a big throughput helped by the tools for the ongoing project, that's already a win. And then you want to be able to be used by the developers in the team themselves. And third, to be able to be used by the community. We're still on the first one.
Yeah, but in terms of the naming, for example, I like to stick as close as possible to Blender's own layout system, even when it doesn't make sense. We have some, like the checkbox is called option. But I mean, I would call it checkbox, but then it's in Blender, it's called options. At some point, we need to rename that thing. But yeah, try to make it easy so anyone that is making Blender's UI already can jump into the design system and use it right away, because we want the community to get involved. And by design team, it's just two of us, and it's like not even full time sometimes. So it's we try to get more people from the community involved. That's why you can get the design system.
One hack we did, and as you've seen, we are not afraid of hacks, is that for some things we actually have the name and then a bar, and then the name other people might know it by. So yes. the adjust less operator, which I just call redo panel, and everyone just call redo panel, has a redo afterwards.
Yeah, the same with the sidebar. Everybody calls it N panel, because back in the days it used to be the shortcut N, just to bring a panel, but now it's called a sidebar. So we just say N panel, sidebar, so whatever you're searching for shows up.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Dalai and Pablo.
Thank you.